Good morning everyone. For today's video, our topic is about how to start the emergency generator in a cold ship condition or cold ship initial condition. So on our previous topic, we discussed the basic familiarization on how to navigate on the simulator display. And now, we're going to apply what we have learned from our videos or previous video. We will now run the simulator. From freeze, we will press F1. So as you can see, from freeze, the simulator now is running. And then we will choose this emergency generator. And now we will be directed on the emergency generator display. Nowadays, seafarers, especially the young seafarers, are very lucky because of the simulator. Because using the simulators, you can effectively enhance your knowledge, especially while you are in the school studying marine engineering, so that when you come on board, you have the basic principle, you have the basic knowledge on what you are doing. Unlike before, without simulators, we have also the basic knowledge, but because of the technology, it is more effective. Because using the simulator, you can run the machineries and learn something about the machineries. You can do the trial and error, that even if you make mistakes, you can reload the simulators and start it again until you will be able to understand the idea or the principle of the simulator's operation, the engine operation, or whatever machineries you are trying to learn. And unlike gun or those days that we do our learnings using the trial and error, we also read manuals, but somehow it is very difficult because you are trying to do the trial and error on the actual machinery, that in case you miss some details on the manuals, it could lead to breakdown or worse, accident. That's why using the simulators, you are very lucky. And nowadays also, it's easy for a young seafarers who wanted to become an officer, because of the technology, we can do our review while we are on board, or we can do our review while we are enjoying our vacation at home, because we have this internet. So, but one must imagine why these simulators are very expensive. And what are the things that these simulators can give to a young seafarers? One is knowledge. If the simulators are effectively used, a cadet or a junior engineer can enhance his knowledge and become more responsible and effective junior engineers while on board. But sometimes there are some questions from our junior engineers or cadets. They are asking, "Sir, why it is very hard for us to understand the simulators?" It's simply because the simulator is not the same as what we have on board. The principle is the same, but the setup is not the same. That's why you need to really understand how to use a simulator. And let us try, for example, running the emergency generator, so that we can understand more what does it mean. In here, we have this emergency generator. Usually, they run the system by looking for the start, and then start, and then looking for the here is the start, looking for the emergency switchboard, then try to press this button, this button, this button, this button, because they are trying to beat the time. Because they were thinking that if they would be able to run the system as fast as possible, they were thinking that that is already good. But actually, that is not the reality. The reality is when you are trying to start the emergency generator, you have to check first what are the things that you need to do. You need to check the parameters, the level. For example, here, the lube oil, the engine control position, if it is auto, if it is manual, the diesel oil day tank, the level of the cooling water system, the lines. So before you start, for example, here the generator, this can be start. So we have alarms. So we have to acknowledge that alarm by pressing right click, and then since this is not really very important now, so we have to close this alarm. Then we can proceed with our task of starting the emergency generator. To start the emergency generator, we have two ways. One is using by battery. As you can see, we have 22.42, and we have accumulator. In the accumulator, we have zero pressure. To run the emergency generator by accumulator, we have to switch on this pump and wait until the pressure becomes 150. As you can see in the engine control panel, these lights, green, red, they are all indicators. As of this time, no light means it is not running. The N also represents the RPM of this generator. So it's 0, it means this generator is not yet running. So the pressure is already almost 150, we have to switch off this pump. And before we start, we will try to check the data. By pressing this, the data will pop up. As you can see, the power of this engine is around 250 kilowatt, 1,800 RPM. The voltage is 440 and the frequency is 60. Power factor is 0.90. This data is very important for an engineer or engine personnel. So that, for example, we close this and we run this by starting using the accumulator. You have to observe the parameters, for example, the RPM. As the data says, it is 1,800 RPM. So when you start the generator, you have to wait for that RPM to reach at least 1,800 RPM. So the frequency is still 0. Later, we will show how are we going to give the frequency of 60. So in reality, again, you have to wait until the system is a little bit warm. You're not going to load the system as early as possible because thermodynamically it's not good. You have to warm up the system. Check the pumps if they are okay before you load the system. But we are going to stop again because we will try the starting using the battery. As you can see, there is an indicator green here. The light is green. It means running. So we are going to press this stop so to stop the engine again. As you can see, the RPM of the generator start to decrease. We have to wait for a while before we try to start the generator using the battery. The RPM is 0. We will try to start the generator using the battery. We are going to press this button, start. And again, observe the RPM and look around. In reality, look around if there is no abnormality, including the leakage, sounds, and temperatures, before you try to close the breaker. So the RPM now is 1700, 1803. As we are trying to warm up the engine, we can proceed with this number 70. The number 70 is electrical power plant. As you can see, all breakers are open. It means before we start the generator, nothing is running. That's why it is being called cold ship. So now generator is running. We are going to check the system for voltage and for frequency. As you can see, frequency is 0. This voltage controller, we need to switch on so that we will have a voltage of around 440 and a frequency of around 60. Besides, here is the governor control. If we want to lower or raise the RPM of this generator. If we want to lower, press this one. If we want to raise, press this one. But this is almost okay, so we are going to close this breaker by pressing this button, breaker in, so that this breaker will be closed, in closed position. Again, try. So as you can see now, the emergency generator is supplying now our emergency bus bar, and to go to the emergency bus bar, we are going to press this 73. So after that, we are being redirected to emergency switchboard. So in here, we will explain why this generator is being called emergency switchboard. This is your emergency generator now connected to your emergency bus bar. As you can see, there are circuit breaker on these feeder panels. The first one is the steering gear 2. This is being called emergency generator because in case of blackout, this generator will supply power into our steering gear. So we will close this circuit breaker. Now in case of blackout, the ships can still control the direction of our ship's movement until the problems were rectified by the engineers. So what if there is a fire? We will close this breaker so that in case of emergency, like fire emergency, we have emergency fire pump to supply water to combat the fire. How about this emergency operating panel? We will close this emergency operating panel. What is this emergency operating panel? Go to process directory. Panel directory. So look for 116 or the emergency operating panel. In here also you can operate your quick closing valves, emergency stop of oil, diesel oil pumps. Emergency operating ventilation now is especially in case of emergency. Okay, in case of emergency, you need to stop the diesel and fuel oil lube oil pumps if it is fire emergency, and also ventilation to limit the supply of oxygen. You need the fire pump to supply water in case you need to use water in combating the fire. You need also to these shut-off valves of DG1 and DG2. For example, the fire is located in the diesel generator 1. You need to shut off the valves for diesel generator 1 or for main engine so that the main engine will stop. So going back, process directory, emergency switchboard. So those are the reason why we need the emergency generator in case of blackout. We can still perform our emergency duties in case there is a problem. So emergency transformer, we have to close this. Why? Because as you can see, it is supplying this transformer, and this transformer from 440 to 220. And what is this 220? These are the light panel. In case the blackout happens during night, at least you have light in the bridge. in the engine room. Imagine yourself doing something in the dark. It will be very, very complicated and hard for all of you. What others? Emergency air compressor. Close this emergency air compressor. Okay. So using the emergency air compressor, process directory, starting air system. This is your emergency compressor. It means this compressor is being supplied by your emergency switchboard. That in case of blackout, you can still run this emergency compressor to start your other generators. Going back, press this one, back. So what else? Main battery charger. For example, if the problem lasts for a little bit longer than you expected, you still have some power supply to charge your battery, because your battery, as you can see, is also charging your batteries for your emergency generator. So it means the battery supply, the charger of the battery of the emergency generator is also coming from your emergency switchboard. Another, this line also supplies DC 24 volts to your main switchboard. Nautical instrument, remote control. So it means if during blackout, without this, you cannot use your main engine remote control, elevator control, fire alarm system control, so inert gas control, or DC 24 volts lightning. So this is very, very essential. Starting battery charger, same, as you can see, your battery. And then in case of emergency that we need to abandon the ship, we have this lifeboat winch. So what if you have blackout? You still have the power for your lifeboat winch to lower your lifeboat. And it should be both, you see, starboard and port side. How about the elevator, sir? In case of emergency, do we need the elevator? Yes. We are not going to use the elevator in case of emergency, but at least if there's someone trapped inside the elevator, you can still open the elevator. You can see here, we also supply the elevator control on the 24 volts. So again, emergency generator is not being called emergency generator for no reason. It is being called emergency generator because it is supplying all the essential equipment needed in case of emergency, so that you can still function yourself during the emergency. You can still do the things that you need to do. Another set of breakers here, so you just need to open this diesel generator, low oil priming pump. So these are all very essential also. So that is the good thing about the simulator. If being used properly, there's a lot of learning. For example, if you are the duty engineer, or you want to enhance yourself, understanding these basic principles when you go around your emergency generator, you're not just going to look for example, the normal thing. You go inside the generator, you're just going to check the lube oil level. You're just going to check the power, the sounds. So the leaking, you are also going to include this idea that is these breakers are on. For example, this one is not switched on. You can report to your senior engineer, one of our breaker trip off, or one of our breaker is not in a closed position. So let us try to close all the breakers, so that in case of emergency, we have this emergency switchboard to supply all the essential equipment needed during blackout or any emergency. So that's all for today about the emergency generator. I hope you learned something and understand how to start the emergency generator, and the reason why it is being called emergency generator. I hope you subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos to come and share. Thank you.